Jujutsu Kaisen's 236th chapter has just dropped, and with it, most of the fandom's morale. The chapter opens with teenage Gojo and Geto seeing each other at an airport, with Gojo saying that sucks. Gojo and Geto talk for a bit, and Gojo is clearly distraught that he left behind his students, and when Geto asks him how fighting Sukuna was, Gojo responds by saying that he was really strong. He says that even if he hadn't had the 10 shadows, Gojo still might have lost. He then adds that he feels sorry for Sukuna since the loneliness that came with being the strongest was something that he understood, but he couldn't make Sukuna feel the same way. While Gojo had fun because he could go all out, he's still disappointed that Sukuna couldn't do the same. We then see Nanami and Haibara sitting with them, and they talk about how they used to view Gojo, and Nanami viewing his own death. Nanami talks about how Meimei told him to live up north if he wants to become a new person, and to live down south if he'd like to return to who he once was. We get some quick shots of the others in this airport, with Yaga, Rika, Kuroi, and even Toji being there, as we see the plane that everyone's about to board, and Gojo ultimately says that he's okay with being dead. After that, we get to see Gojo's body, as Sukuna talks about how he was using Maharaga to give himself a way to cut through Gojo's Limitless. There's a quick shot of Yuji, clearly distressed, and Yuta and Maki are getting ready to head out, as we see Sukuna standing in front of Gojo's body cleaved in two, before complimenting Gojo on his performance, and Gojo giving a quick smile. Finally, we see the goat flying in to scrap with Sukuna, the god of lightning himself, Kashimo Hajime, and the chapter ends there. Needless to say, this chapter went crazy. While I saw a lot of people hating on Gege's decision to have Gojo killed off-screen, I honestly don't think it was that bad of a decision. When we see what's left of Gojo, we see his legs are still in the standing position, meaning Sukuna probably just tore straight through him not too shortly after being hit with purple, so it's not like there would have been much of a fight to show anyway. There's also obviously been a lot of discourse around Gojo not actually being dead, and how he might be able to come back since his head wasn't destroyed and he was still able to smile. While this is definitely possible, since even in this chapter he isn't fully gone, I don't think having Gojo come back in the story, full force at least, and continue fighting Sukuna would make sense narratively. Gojo has done his part. It's time for the students of Jujutsu High to do theirs. And the only thing I can see him coming back for is to possibly tell Megumi about Toji, or to possibly fight Kenjaku. Gojo himself also seems like he doesn't want to continue living, since at the end of the peek into the Jujutsu afterlife, he says that he's hoping that it isn't a dream. He's accepted the fact that he's dead. So at least for the foreseeable future, Gojo is probably dead, and won't be coming back anytime soon to do anything crazy plot-wise. Lastly, the goat himself, Kashimo, has arrived onto the battlefield to run his ones with the King of Curses. At Sukuna's current state, I still think he's too strong for Yuta, Maki, and Hikari to be able to handle him. And the rest of the sorcerers being present probably isn't going to do a whole lot to change things. Regardless of how many Shikigami he lost and his inability to use his domain, he was still able to heal from purple, so he's still got RCT, and now his slashing abilities can just flat out cut through space, so I don't see any reasonable way for the sorcerers to take him down that's satisfying and doesn't feel rushed or filled with plot armor. So that leaves the fate of the world in the hands of Kashimo. Whatever his technique is, Sukuna versus Kashimo has to result in Sukuna sustaining massive damage, enough for someone like Yuji to finally get his get back on him, and possibly bring Megumi back as well. Otherwise, I don't see how the sorcerers are going to be able to compete with the likes of Kenjaku, Urame, and Sukuna if Kashimo's technique doesn't do enough damage. I'm expecting Sukuna versus Kashimo to be around 3 to 4 chapters in length, and by the end of it, Kashimo will hopefully have Sukuna's respect, and also probably be dead. As much as I want my goat to win, I don't see the story playing out that way. Even if his technique allows him to use a domain, Sukuna probably has some sort of an anti-domain technique, and he still has other tricks up his sleeve that literally no one knows about. But Sukuna will hopefully be weakened enough that Yuji, who will have a massive anger amp, will be able to either kill him in Megumi's body, or something happens and he's forced to leave Megumi's body, with the final fight of the series being Yuji and Megumi versus a Heian-era Sukuna. Of course, the rest of the sorcerers will be dealing with Kenjaku as this is happening. Jujutsu Kaisen is at an interesting place with its story right now. strongest sorcerer of the modern era, is likely dead, and the fate of the world rests on a 400-year-old battle-crazed maniac and a couple of students. There's still Kenjaku and possibly Urame to deal with, assuming that she didn't just get deleted by Purple. So our cast has their work cut out for them. But at least for the next few chapters, I'm excited to see how Sukuna vs. Kashimo plays out, and see my goat show the King of Curses what the God of Lightning can really do.